Okay, so I did restart AutoCAD. I reloaded the routine. You can either do that through your app load or just in your window right here. So next, let's throw one grid bubble in here. I'm gonna go edit. So I'm going to do some work on the block right now. I want to put 2 dynamic block properties in just because the next part we do coming up here is going to be messing around with the alignment. But if you remember back to the attribute section of these tutorials, I only have 1 attribute. That makes things a little bit simple, but I want to show you what happens if we have 2 dynamic block properties. So if this isn't useful to you, you might want to skip ahead. So what I'm going to do here, let's 0.1. Okay, that'll work. This is going to have no 0 grips. Actions, scale. Parameter sets. I'm going to use a parameter set for this lookup table this time. So this lookup table, so name that scale text. Show properties, yes. No grips. That means it'll only show up in the properties window. There won't be a grip, unlike this right here. Okay, let's properties scale. Default. I think I made that line. So if you do this, always pick a uniform length or it gets tricky. Okay. So something like that. Now we can, this might not work yet. Oh no, it does. Oh, I gotta fix that. I guess I forgot the 0. Okay, let's go in there and repair that. There we go. Let's get rid of that eyesore. Okay, so I just wanted to add another action. So since that went so well, I'm going to pause the video just in case I screw up the lesson afterwards quickly. Then I'm going to come back right. Okay, so sure enough, I did screw up the lesson, but at least it forced me to kind of rehearse what I'm going to do next. So this is going to be a really, really important part of all this. Probably, I don't want to say this is my personal secret, but one of the best kept Lisp secrets is about to be divulged. So I'm just going to get my test subject going right here. So a lot of what you see on my channel with dynamic blocks being manipulated by Lisp, and this is super powerful, the combination of a dynamic block and Lisp routines. Once you know how to do this, you won't be able to edit just certain properties. And I guess I'll show you exactly what I'm doing right now. So we have these alignment properties, and this isn't a big time saver here because I showed early on in the video we can actually change actually select all these at once. If we select only this block, we have access, or blocks with the same property names, we can change them all at once. Just keep that in mind. So this is more just to show you how to edit a dynamic block property with AutoLISP. I might have said this in the videos already, but yeah, you can have like a beam that you just draw like a line and it automatically sizes your beam to that line. Various other things as well. The sky's really the limit. Once you learn how to use Lisp with dynamic blocks, it's I want to say it's easy. It's not easy, but if you just like our where's that subfunction for our attributes? Once you create a subfunction, remember this subfunction only works if your block has one attribute. That won't be the case with our dynamic block properties, and generally you have to treat your dynamic block properties as a list because there's usually going to be more than one property, which we're going to see really shortly. But yeah, once you make a nice little subfunction, adjusting those properties is actually super easy. So anyways, let's get our test subject ready. Let's type seq user selection. So I'm going to plug this guy in right here. Okay, so we got our object. Oops, I gave away the lesson up there. That was my... Basically, when I recorded this the first time, I tried to work from memory, and then I got stuck right at the end, right at the final step. But at least this will go smoother. So just for kicks, let's do type user selection. It's nice to know what you're dealing with as you go through your code. VLA object. So let's dump object user selection true. Let's see what that pumps out. Okay, so we got all our properties. Here's what we're searching for. I'm just going to copy that. Oops, did that copy it? I'm not sure. My computer's being a little bit annoying right now. Apologies for that. I'm gonna figure out why it's doing that. I don't know why. Anyways, let's make a little bit more room. So maybe my mouse pad's stuck on or something. I'm not sure. Let's do a type. Variant, okay. So seq din props as variant. So type array of an object, value safe array. So variants are these wacky things, and same with safe arrays for that matter. We can deal with them with Visual Lisp, but we only deal with them for the minimal amount of time we actually have to. So we got these dynamic block properties stored in a variant, which are stored in an array, and eventually we'll have to deal with another variant within the array within the variant. And that sounds confusing. It is confusing, but remember, once we get our subfunction sorted, you don't have to deal with all this junk. So we have this. Okay, so let's do another type VLA get oops, no, I think it's VLA variant value. Hang on. VLAX variant value. And I just did this and I still can't remember some stuff, but so don't expect this to be easy your first time. Let's see what that yields. Safe array. So let's do in props as safe array. So Q. Let's inspect it. Okay, so type, object, number of dimensions, 1, and you see the value basically looks like a list. So I'm just going to peel away quickly. Close that off. So I got a little diagram here. A safe array is like a list of lists. Kinda. They're a pain in the butt. So I got that little diagram there. That'll make sense in just a second. So if you don't use that inspection tool, my microphone's kind of in the way of me typing here. Get dim. Just gets the number of dimensions, and we just saw that with the inspection thingy. So 1 dimension. Get U. So we actually have to plug the dimension right there. And I think dimensions, I don't think they index like a list. I think 1 is the first dimension, not 0. So I think if I type 0, we're going to get an error. So anyways, that upper boundary, what did that say? Let's it was 5. Let's just do that one more time. Index equals 5. Should have just copied this because I would have only had to change the 1 letter. Live and learn. Let's see what this does. 0. Lower index 0. Meaning 6 items in the first dimension. So let's inspect this again. So if you look at where these little, let's see, 1, 2, 3. I gotta actually pull this to the other side of my screen. So believe it or not, there's actually 6 items in this value. So anyways, there are ways to iterate through a safe array. Don't think that's impossible, because you can get the number of dimensions and you can get the upper and lower indexes of those dimensions. When you build safe arrays, and I'd really recommend going to AutoLISP.net site. They'll explain it much better than I can. Even if I wanted to take the time to explain it, he's nonetheless got a really good tutorial on there. Like, it really explains it well. When you create a safe array, you actually pick your indexes. You pick your dimensions, how many you want, you pick the indexes. So there are ways, like you'd probably use a looping statement and you'd grab these numbers from the safe array to figure out how many times to loop through it. But normally in AutoLISP, we have the ability to deal with variants and safe arrays, but we just pass them in and out as quickly as we can. So we're going to do VLAX safe array list. set q din props as list. We're going to change it to a list. So this either won't work if you have a multi-dimensional array, or it'll produce a list of lists. I'm not quite sure, but in this case, and I believe this is always the case with dynamic block properties, you need only work with safe arrays of one dimension. Should be a list. Perfect. Let's inspect that. Okay, 6 items starting with an index of 0. So I did add that second dynamic property to the block. Remember the text size increment. Let's do something. VLAX dash dump object inth 0 dynamic props as list. True. No methods. So it's got a lot of read-only here. That means we can't really touch or manipulate that stuff. But we do have these things, or this one property value that isn't read-only. That's the only value that's not read-only. That's the value, or that's the property we're going to try to play with here. So what this actually is the, I'm gonna move this off the screen. It's my, not my alignment parameter, it's actually the point move itself. So I'm gonna go in here quickly, edit. Okay, so we're actually looking at this. So you can see there should be a position X and position Y. Base X, base Y, label X, label Y. Yeah, there we go. So if I show the properties, you can see a little bit better of a picture of what's exactly is going on. So sure enough, there's position X, and we have a value. So as you can see, we got another variant. I'll pull a page up just to show you what variants actually are. They're a little bit, to me, they seem kind of convoluted, because if you deal with variants in other languages, the advantage of a variant is it's can have anything in it, whereas AutoLISP, it seems like the opposite. You have to actually, because there's not really typecasting in AutoLISP. You can make a variable or a symbol a string, then you can just put an integer or like a double or a real into it like nothing. It don't matter. But as soon as we deal with variants, we got to be really strict with what they are and their types and everything. And I'm going to explain that in just a second here. Actually, I got to get on with it before I run out of coffee. So if you're getting impatient, don't worry. Okay, so we have this value that we've actually, let's just make this a little set q test prop. Or actually, I already dumped that, so let's not do that. So get value. So we get a variant. So let's do a set q test variant. So the value is 0.0, cool. So if we wanted to change that, we could actually put a value, but it's not quite that simple. There's actually a variant type, and it gives back an integer 5. So I got a bunch of pages up here. I'm gonna yank this on here. So AutoCAD's documentation, it's okay, but it really doesn't explain things well because we have all these different types, and that's actually what that number represents. We'll need something like this, I think. So it gives us a number, but not a explanation of what that number is. So anyways, I found this site, AutoCAD Dev Blog. They explain it a lot better, and here you list right now. So these are the different variant values. So number 5 is VB double. And number 8, which we'll use later, is a VB string, so remember that. So it's kind of a shame that you can't get that information off Autodesk's own, or they might have a page somewhere, it's just hard to find. But anyways, let's actually figure out how to get to the property we want. I don't want to mess around with that point move directly. What I want to do is have access to this guy, right? Remember what that is? That should be my alignment property. So I think I'm gonna get rid of all this. So I'm gonna do a map car lambda, this time item. Name this anything you want. Just keep the name the same throughout the lambda expression. So if equals VLA I gotta inspect this again, sorry. So I think what we're looking at is, and let's actually find the property we're working with. So 0 was the X position for that point move. 1 is the Y position. So the third property is our alignment property name. That's what we're looking for. And just for kicks, let's see what else there is. The scale property I just made not too long ago. Well, actually about an hour ago now. Origin, that's just the base point parameter. And this one is my lookup table for the scale text. So anyways, we're going to do if VLA property name if it turns blue finally. This will be case sensitive, just keep that in mind. Sorry, I gotta dive into this again. Too few arguments. What have I done here? Okay, if equals VLA get property name. item alignment. Oh, this is easy. I'm just missing my list. Okay. Plug that in right there. So nil, because none of those property names match. This property name matched. And the last three doesn't match. So there's another statement, I forget which one specifically it is, but I think in C# it would be for each. It would actually stop the iteration at this point and save you a bit of resources. And you will almost notice a difference if you use that same function in AutoLISP, but I forget what it is right now. But the mapcar lambda will go through every single entry in the list, whereas the other functions will actually stop right here, which is more ideal because once it finds that property name, we're done with that list and we got what we needed out of it. So anyways, we're gonna do a test value, get value, test variant. A X variant value. Okay, that's what we wanted. So what we're getting there is we can inspect this. There's only two things in here. And okay, so this gives me a hint of what type of variant we're dealing with. Variant 8 center. So variant type 8, which is a string, and then center, which is the value. Set Q test variant type PLAX. So VLAX, that's make variant. I just got to make sure I get the. So right now that block is set to center, I believe. So I'm going to do top and 8, signifying that this variant is a VB string. So variant 8 top. So let's try to put that value into our test variant. And I'm going to pull this off to the side. We can see how our grid bubble is aligned right now. Put value. Test variant. New value. Just had that order. Ah, dang it. Okay, so I got my Okay, I just gotta look at what we're dealing with here. Okay, so what I should have done was instead of getting that I skipped the step with my map car statement, so I actually should have just did this, which is setting item to the actual property, not the property's value. So IACAD dynamic block reference property. Whereas this, I'll plug that in again. So it actually got the value of the property there. So I kind of jumped ahead a step. So I'm going to delete all that evidence and I don't want to redo this lesson, so unfortunately my mistake will remain visible for all to see. Okay, so put property, test property, new value. Okay, so that should change the alignment to top once we click and refresh. Let's change that to right. Okay, so that's all working, and all I have to do now, the one thing is we don't really need any of this. That was just to teach you a little bit about those safe array things we often have to deal with. So what I'm going to do is, the lesson took longer than I intended, so I'm actually going to break all this down and make a nice little sub-function for this as well. One thing to remember is I'm going to stick with mapcar lambda, but there are better ways to do this without having to iterate through the entire list of dynamic block properties. Keep that in mind. Just with a simple block like this grid bubble, there's only 6 items, it doesn't matter. If you have a block with like 20, 30 or more dynamic block properties, keep in mind that you might want to use a different function for that, one that actually stops the iteration when this condition is matched. And I'll look that up for the next lesson and just pull the page onto the screen, give you an idea. It's not hard to find those, I just can't remember which one specifically it is at this time, but as mentioned, I'm doing C# code and I know which one works in that code for that purpose, but right now for Lisp, I'm just going to stick with my trusty old mapcar and lambda. Okay, so after some extensive bug testing, more than I hoped for, my at least the majority of this code is finished. So let's see, we insert our grid bubble, counter's working. Let's do the alignment. Let's do top. Okay, so that's working fine and dandy. So I'm just going to show you what I did. I'm going to go at the top of the code, explain some of the changes I made. So before I had this as centered, and I had this a few different places in my code, always be consistent. And I know I was pushing quite hard yesterday, so mistakes like that are going to find their way through. Here I still got none here. I don't think that's going to cause me any problems. Remember that these are going to be case sensitive as well. So we're going to scroll down. I'll just show you what else I changed in case you're kind of typing this code out manually. I will post this probably at the end of whatever video this ends up being. I'm not going to really go to the cutting room with this. I'm just going to post it as is and maybe lop off parts of the videos at the end if I screw something up. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't have wanted to do 30 minutes of bug testing while I'm recording a video. I don't think that would be much help. So I changed centered here to center. Same with down here. I had it in init get. That would throw the program off. Actually, would just bypass everything. Okay, so this is all the same. So I have the get alignment function that was here before. I now have the set alignment, which has a object passed to it, and I have an underscore in front of it just to not let things get too confusing. Another subfunction down here that I'll explain in just a moment. So I'm going to show you where the set alignment goes. The set alignment, where's that guy? Right here. So the set alignment and my argument, which is the new block insert created right here. So if you use the command function, if you do a command dash insert and so on, all your parameters, you'll have to do one of those conversions. So you'd have to do set q new block insert VLAX dash entity name to VLA object. New block insert. So I don't need to do that because I'm using the VLA insert block command. There's advantages to using the command line function actually. I forget, but there's issues if you change your UCS from the world UCS. The block insert is still going to insert based on the world origin unless you translate it. It's confusing to implement, but once you implement it, just like this dynamic block property changer, it does all the work for you. So you see these little prompts I've put in. It's kind of my way of bug testing. So if I have something in capital letters, I know I got to delete it later. So I'm just going to show you what that was. And I think you saw it probably. So I have this check 1A, check 2, check 3, check 1B, check 4, and then nil, which I can get rid of just by putting a print clean thing right there. I can turn my command echo off as well. I'm not going to get into that, but that'd be a set var cmd echo 0. I do that at the beginning of the routine, not right here. At the end, you'd set it back to 1, and then you'd have to do error trapping to make sure you don't leave it turned off, because you want that on for bug testing. Anyways, I'm not going to get into that in this lesson because that would be way too much to cover in one tutorial. There's a lot, well, mind you, a 4-hour tutorial. So we got the print clean. So anyways, what all those little those flags are doing, it's just my way of bug testing. I find that I can work with that quicker than using the Visual Lisp Editor's bug testing tools. So I have this here, I have this in a program just because I have more than one statement in if code. But if I get rid of this and this, then I just need that, plain and simple. So okay, my set alignment, and that's using a function called KCS set dynamic block property. So that you pass an object to it, which of course is all the way up here. New block insert goes into here, which then becomes this, which gets passed into this function. And now we'll scroll down. And this actually gave me a bit of trouble. I've made this routine before, or a similar routine. So this takes an object, property name, and the new value I want to put into my property. So we'll scroll back up and see what that's all about. So I got the same thing going on here, because this is where my main error was occurring. I just didn't have this set up correctly. And this you'll have to study it on your own, but all I've done from that last lesson is I've copied all this to Notepad, taken all this basically, cut out the stuff we don't need, of course, like playing around with those safe arrays, and just condensed it all into one. Down here is my list that I pass in as the list argument to the mapcar statement. Here, let's get rid of these. So this is how I found the error. I just put a check 2 and a check 3. And since check 3 did not appear, remember this is at the end of the routine, so everything else was working perfectly, then it was crashing right at the end and just not setting the alignment. But doing that allowed me to find my error really quickly. And it's important to add the program, because the last problem was that I put the check statement in there. But I forgot to add the program. So it just did this and didn't do this. So sometimes your bug testing can create bugs in itself. Let's make that nice and clean. So yeah, this is a little bit confusing, but I'm making a variant. I'm actually using the property itself to grab the variant type from, and that's how I get this value. So I'm just going to pull. This is what I was using, the VLAX make variant, and see how he has 5 as his value, then VLAX VB integer. So let's see what it says up here. I'm actually going to pull up the So VLAX make variant value is the first argument, and the variant type is the second argument. So to make this little subroutine work with every type of variant, we just get the variant type from the value we're working with itself, if that makes sense. That's I think the hardest part of all of this. Of course, my new value, we'll go up and look at this again, is just my whatever we decide that we want that alignment to be, which would be either center, top, right, bottom, or left. So this big thing right here is just running all these commands in sequence to basically generate our list. Anyways, I actually covered this all in that last lesson, just I never condensed it quite like this. And I'll say one more time, especially so there's a better way than using mapcar. So I believe it's either VL4. I was supposed to look that up, but I got caught up in my, or for each or something like that. But yeah, so unfortunately the mapcar is going to iterate through every property regardless of whether it finds this or not. And there is that one function that will stop when it does find the property, so that's more ideal. So let's go back up. Here we are. So our object, of course, is our dynamic block that we just inserted. The property name we're searching for is alignment. And the value is going to be this. which is either centered, top, right, bottom, or left. So the new value gets made into a variant and gets given a type based on whatever the previous value has designated as its type. So once you get it working, it's foolproof. I'm pretty sure this will work with different types of variants, not just strings as well. It should. The other one I made does. But if it doesn't, just leave a comment and we'll fix it up. But I'm pretty sure it will work as intended. Okay, so let's check, make sure I didn't screw anything up. Let's make sure the routine still works. Let's do grid bubble. Okay, so I think we're doing pretty good. So quite honestly, I actually think I'm more or less done this whole routine. So maybe I'm just going to add a couple more things to the routine. I'll decide what that is, so let's do a quick pause. Okay, so after refilling my coffee, I decided what I'm going to do with the rest of these tutorials. The answer is I'm basically going to finish it off. I was thinking about adding a way to change the layer of the block, but that's pretty easy stuff, and I do cover that elsewhere on my channel. If you want to see that, let me know. The other thing I was thinking about doing is a quick kind of like a macro for inserting grid lines. And that would be a good pairing with this routine, because then you could draw a grid line, it would switch to the right layer, and then you could do your grid bubble routine right after. You could add that too. That would be a pretty easy routine, and it would work out to be a good lesson, because actually using a visual Lisp to mess around with layers, or if the layer doesn't exist, searching your layer collection and finding out whether or not the layer exists. If it doesn't exist, creating the layer is a really powerful tool, both for learning and in practical use. So anyways, all that's left basically, I gotta take all this stuff and drop it into my local variables. So if I do find a problem with this routine, I'll have to let you know in the comments. And who knows, maybe one of the viewers will play around with it and find something wrong or find something they can do better. Put that in the comments as well. This is a learning tool, and it's not perfectly bug tested. There's certain, I'm sure there's a way to break this routine that I haven't thought of yet, but in all practicality, this is probably going to work like we want it. So yeah, I'm just going to search through here. I'm going to make sure I find all the variables that are supposed to be local. I'm going to do that. And before I finish, however, there was one more important thing I almost forgot to show you, and that was the shortcut to getting list to the bypass for doing the safe array. You can skip the variant, and actually this isn't really a shortcut, but I'll just show you really quickly since I mentioned it. I guess I have to now. So type, I'm going to see if user selection. It might give me an error if I deleted that particular grid bubble, but earlier in these tutorials yeah, it still exists. We did a ent select and converted it to a VLA object, and this is the same deal as with the attributes. I might have that in the wrong order. So this VLAX invoke, as I mentioned with the attributes part of this lesson, is that it's superseded apparently with the invoke method. And it's really weird because this gets you straight to a list, which is ultra useful. Whereas this, we have to, it ends up getting the variant first, and then we got to get the variant value, which is a safe array, then we convert the safe array to a list. So I don't know which is more efficient. I don't use this because it says it's legacy, but I don't think it's going away. So if you ever wanted to bypass that step, if you're doing something a little different than I'm doing here, just know that that little shortcut exists. So anyways, I want to give everyone a big thanks for actually watching at least part of these lessons. I don't expect you to go through the whole lessons. As mentioned, if you have any questions, even if excuse me, even if it's covered, I think I'm running over 4 hours with all these tutorials combined. I'm going to break the videos up. I'm going to try to make them about 45 minutes to an hour for each video. So even if I cover something in these videos, you still have a question, feel 100% free to ask in the comments. I don't mind answering it because I didn't rehearse these, wasn't the most efficient with the time usage. I just wanted to get something onto my channel because I haven't been able to for quite some time. So yeah, so I really hope you found this helpful. I gave a lot of really neat tricks, some super advanced stuff. Once you learn how to mess with these dynamic block properties as well as the attributes, the sky is the limit. And the only thing I haven't shown on my channel yet is how to use, I guess, DCL dialog boxes. That's another powerful concept. So anyways, that's the end of this tutorial. And again, thanks very much for watching.